mouth is when I'm ocean waves.
Today on Nova Legends podcast, I have Hayfield soccer coach Dan Drickey, whose Hawks have just qualified for the state tournament, also winning the Occoquan region with a golden goal against Lewis. Coach, congratulations and thanks for doing this.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
For having me on.
Oh, of course. Thanks for doing it on short notice. Well, look, first of all, you guys won by way of a golden goal, a dramatic golden goal. How do you like the high school format? That's in FIFA soccer, UEFA soccer, FIFA soccer. You have a 30-minute overtime period where no matter who scores first, you go all the way to the end, and then you go to penalties. But high school, there's a lot of rules that are different. How do you feel about that rule?
So far this year, it's been good to us. So I won't complain too much. I do recognize that obviously these are student athletes, and for instance, that game was a Thursday night. And to be perfectly honest with you, if we went 30 minutes, an hour, 2 more days with John and his Lewis kids, the game will never end up in one team beating the other at the final whistle. It's the third time we've played those guys. First time was a tie in the rain. Second time went all the way to PKs. And then this one was a golden goal. So I think, considering it's student athletes, it's the right choice. In a perfect world, keep playing until somebody wins at the final whistle.
Well, it was quite a dramatic way to win. The ball went down the wing, and he did a low cross or brought it back across. One of the other players kind of let it run. Is that the way you drew it up, Coach?
Sure. Yeah, I had the whiteboard out. We drew it up. It's actually, ironically enough, it's something that we kind of worked on a little bit in preparation for Lewis. We played them enough times that we had talked to our 7s and 11s about dropping a little deeper to get involved. And Joel Spalding dropped deep, one of our outstanding wingers, received the ball, and we talked to them about attacking those corners to try and pull defenders out of the middle. And he had a great deep ball for Curtis to run onto. Curtis running on pretty much one leg at that point. He's been battling a little bit of an injury. Did a good job of getting on the end of it, settling himself, picking out Jorge, who, as I told after the game, for about 0.3 seconds, I was ready to shake him for not taking the shot himself. But he said he heard Ewan call for it. And I mean, you saw what happened. A little flick to keep it going with the bottom of his cleat, and Ewan did the rest from 35 out first time.
So you mentioned it was a great shot. You mentioned Curtis. You mentioned Curtis, Jorge, and I forgot the last person. What are the last names? What are the full names?
Ewan Spiker is for the goal. Jorge Lopez Escobar is a 4-year starter for us and captain. He's the one that laid it off. Curtis Amenya is the one that ran into the flank. And Joel Spalding is the one that played it deep for him.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know your team a little bit. My son Chandler played for Yorktown last year. He was the number 6. So we played you guys here. A great game, as a matter of fact. I think it was a 2-1 game here. Maybe even a rainy night, but I remember it was a very competitive game. You had a midfielder who plays down at VDA. I think he graduated, but I know he played at the next level.
He's playing at the United States Merchant Marine Academy.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. What was his name again, Coach?
Jack Ouellette.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. So, well, let's hear more about your team. Why don't you give us more about your setup? I've only seen you guys online this year. You look very athletic. Looks like you have some size. Your goalie is not the tallest guy in the world. I did notice that online. But tell us more about your team.
So we've got a great blend of experience with our seniors. And then we've got some younger guys that have stepped in, and even some juniors that are new to the varsity field. We've got up until about the midpoint, we were alternating our goalkeepers. Our senior starter goes about 6'3", 6'4", and is also going to be going to the United States Merchant Marine Academy to play there. But he picked up a little bit of an injury and was out for about a month. So we stopped splitting him, obviously, and Lorenzo, the goalkeeper that you mentioned, has absolutely stepped up in spades. You look at him, and as you said, he's not the biggest in the world, but I'm not sure you're going to find a more athletic, confident, or smooth goalkeeper than Lorenzo. He's a sophomore in every sense of the word. So you get him off the soccer field, and he's typical sophomore in high school, quirky, goofy, silly. But something happens to him when he steps on the field, and he just gets into his little zone. And he's actually as harshest critic is himself. He let one go through his hands against South County in the semifinal. And it took a couple of our guys to kick him in the butt and get him going again, because he was just beating himself up. But he's kind of taken that role now himself. Obviously, Ethan Howell is there when we need him. And it's no drop off if I have to go to Ethan. Our back line is led predominantly by Hatim El-Kashwani, who's our big, tall number 4 center back. He had the goal against Lewis in the district final. He had the first goal in the regional final. He's hard to handle on set pieces, and just the kid wants to win. So he does what he needs to do. And then we've got Josh Thompson's a sophomore. He was on all region first team selection at large as one of our outside backs. Played with a cast on his hand for half the season and plays way more composed than you expect out of a sophomore. But our team really goes from our 3 central midfielders. That would be Jorge and Ewan, in there with Marvin Cabrera, who is an SYC kid, was a DC United kid for a while, and is going to be going to Mary Washington. But the 3 of those guys make everybody else's job significantly easier. Ewan will come and sit between our center backs when we need him to. And then, as you saw on that goal, he'll pop up and add something on the other end. And Marvin is all energy all day. I don't know that Marvin really stops running ever. And then Jorge is just composed and kind of checks all the boxes and does everything that we need him to do in the middle. And then we rotate, 5 or 6 guys across the front line, led primarily by Joel Spalding and Curtis Amenya, but we've also had Mason Ladd chip in. I think he's got 7 or 8 goals coming off the bench significantly. And then a couple other guys that have contributed and done what we need them to do across the top line.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting about the Occoquan region, because it seems like every year you can ignore the regular season, because first of all, you guys have a postseason where every team qualifies for regionals. So you have to get on a roll. This year you tried something a little bit different in that you had double buys in the regionals, so that if you won the district tournament like you guys did, you got a double buy. Every team, the teams that lost early, had to play their way in. But it's interesting, the Occoquan region, it seems like you could throw the regular season records away. You can even throw tradition away sometimes. And whoever's just playing well at the end seems to be the teams that go. I mean, 2 years in a row, South County and West Potomac just came on late in the end, and they were very tough to beat. What do you think about the way the Occoquan region is set up?
It makes it a lot harder, for sure. But in our case, it was good for us because last year, first round of our district tournament, we had a rough regular season. We started to put it together near the end, and we lost 10 penalty kicks to Justice in the first round of the district tournament. And when Lewis lost as the 1 seed last year in the district tournament, that meant that we were the 8 seed coming out. So we were matched up with Fairfax at their place to start the region tournament last year. And we beat them in the 4th overtime with like 45 seconds left on the clock and a 4-3 back and forth affair. I think 3 of the goals happened in overtime. So we knew going in to regions that there would be no easy game because we were that problem last year. And we actually, the quarterfinal round, unfortunately ran into West Potomac when they were hotter than we were. and lost. But this year going in, it was easy to refocus the guys and say, okay, district tournament's over. Congratulations. You got the banner. The numbers are going up in the gym. That's great. But remember who we were last year, and let's not be the Fairfax of this year where we come in flying high and then we're done after one game. So I don't love it. It worked to our advantage, obviously, but I certainly don't love it. But I will say that specifically in boys soccer, there's just so much talent in this area that you see things like we did last year way more often, or you see West Potomac come in as a lower seed and come within an overtime period of making the region final again. So I think it's fair in respect to the level of competition that and the level of play in this area. And if I look in the northern region and I see schools, traditional schools like Washington Liberty and Yorktown, who gave us our only loss so far this year, not even advancing to the region tournament, I can see the other side where it's hard to swallow that, hey, we're a good team. Why aren't we still playing?
Yeah, I mean, the Concord was so tough. And then, Liberty District always is tough. But generally, there's a little bit more structure in terms of the powerhouses. It's always been South Lakes, Langley, Yorktown. It seems like those teams dominate, generally. And then, but it seems like at Occoquan, you never really know who's going to come out. Going into the season, I mean, you guys had an amazingly consistent year. I believe you lost one game, tied, I think, 2 or 3 games, but all year long, you're very consistent. Did you have any idea you're going to be that good this year?
I didn't expect us to be this good. I knew we were going to be good. So last spring we hosted at our school, we hosted our softball district final, our baseball district final, and our girls soccer final all at the same time. So I was helping my athletic director set up the fields and get everything ready for those 3 games. And he and I had a conversation about what this year would look like. And I told him we would be good. I told him that I thought we could make some noise. I thought that we had some pieces. I didn't think things would go this well. After we lost to Yorktown, we made a couple of personnel changes, and we've been flying since. So it's credit to the boys. I would be lying if I told you it was myself and my coaching staff. Those boys that play for us are committed. They've had it in their mind that this is where they wanted to be going into the season. And they never get too high. They never get too low. If we give up a goal, they're picking each other up. We're not having to remind them. We score a goal and we certainly celebrate. But then as soon as they're done with their celebration, they're looking at each other and they're like, all right, let's get back into it. Let's focus. Let's go again. So it's really credit to them. A lot of that comes from Jorge's leadership and Ewan's leadership. But it also just comes from, they're a tight-knit group. And they play for each other and they work for each other. They come and see me, and I'm in the building as a teacher. So they come and see me 3 and 4 at a time, to just hang out, talk shop, whatever. And I'm constantly shooing them back to their regular classes. But they play for each other. And then one of the things we've talked about all year is, something that I stole from my old high school coach, Jeff Riemann, back in the day. And that's that, you break the season down into weeks or little mini sections. And we looked at our out of district schedule at the beginning of the year with, a scrimmage against Langley, a scrimmage against Woodson, going to Washington Liberty and playing on that huge field, having Yorktown come to us, having West Potomac come to us, and having Lake Braddock come to us. So we knew that we would be tested early. We came through it better than I thought we would. I thought we would stumble a little bit. And we had a little bit of a bad stretch in that kind of Lake Braddock, Yorktown, where we didn't play our best. But I think coming out of that, going into the district season, the boys were like, hey, if we can handle that out of district schedule, our district's good, but we're going to be okay. And they've just kind of rode that momentum. And we talk about checking a box, and we talk about, you know, can we be perfect this week? Can we go 2-0? Can we go 1-0? Can we go 3-0? Whatever it is. Going into the district tournament, we talked about if we don't give up any goals, we like our odds. And they really own that, and they buy into that, and that's kind of a badge of honor for them. And they have, it's, I think, helped them focus on the smaller picture rather than when are we going to get to an important game that's going to mean something.
Yeah. What effect does the fact that you have an historic basketball team in the building, the Hayfield team, that back-to-back state champs, undefeated one year, does that raise the level and the expectation of teams in the building? Or does it take emphasis away from the soccer team? And the girls team was very good, lost on a golden goal the other way. Incredible.
Right.
Just probably from almost the same spot you guys hit from. But what effect does the basketball team have on the soccer program?
You know, one of the things I love about Hayfield, and I graduated from Hayfield, so I'm certainly biased. But one of the things I love about Hayfield, it is truly a one school mentality. Yes, the basketball team has had a fantastic 2-year run, and I wouldn't put it past Los to have a deep run next year also. However, we use them as the example, and we say, you know, the basketball team did it, so why can't we? This spring, we won 5 different district championships, boys soccer, girls soccer, boys lacrosse, baseball, softball. And I think our girls lacrosse lost in the semifinals, I believe, of the district. So we've had a successful season as a whole in the building. Our football team won the district in the fall. So we are certainly not just a basketball school in our community. We get looked at as a basketball school because of the success that Coach Poindexter and the boys have had. But, you know, we've talked about, look at the momentum that came around when the basketball team started rolling, and why not us? Why not get the boys soccer team rolling? Why not get the baseball team rolling? Why not get the girls soccer team rolling? Like, it was really special. And I don't even know that the boys realize how special it was to have double headers with the girls the entirety of the district tournament run, and then up until the semifinals when they unfortunately lost to a really good Fairfax team. It was amazing. Like, the boys were like, Coach, we want to sit in the stands. Like, we would go into the locker room, we'd talk, and I'd say, okay, I want you outside in 15 or 20 minutes. And like 2 minutes later, they're coming out and they're back in the stands to watch the girls. But that's the mentality in the building. Like, everybody's behind everybody. Coach Poindexter was one of the first people to greet me after we were done celebrating on the field after the regional final. If you go on social media, he's got one of the best videos I've seen from the weekend that didn't include the goal. So it really is, while we look at our basketball program as the example, it really is kind of a one school, one community attitude throughout the building.
Yeah, and if you didn't have 2 great goalies, I would have recommended Greg Jones. Could have been your goalie. It could have been like Amar from Langley last year, just signing up for his last year and you know, and winning a regional championship. And obviously, they went beyond that. So, well, Coach, let's talk a little bit about your background. You mentioned you went to Hayfield. Tell us about your playing career. I know you mentioned Coach Jack, I think Reamer, you said. Tell us about your playing career and what kind of player you were.
So coming up in high school, you know, I played travel. I played high school. My junior and senior year, we were district champions and made it to the regional semifinals and lost to a really good TC Williams at the time, and a really good Stewart High School at the time that were both loaded with future pros. But a lot of what I still do today as a coach comes from Coach Riemann. He's somebody that talked to us as more than just players or student athletes. His focus was that you had to do what you had to do in the building first, and then you could come out and be a soccer player. But when you came out there, you had to be the best soccer player you could be. So for me, that was a challenge. I graduated high school 5'2", 120 pounds soaking wet. So I was not an outstanding player. I was one of those guys that did the job. You know, if you needed somebody to go out there and follow the best midfielder around and be a nuisance, that was my responsibility. But I was always kind of watching the game. For me, it was about watching what people did in situations. It was about how can I make the game simpler. I didn't get any scholarship offers coming out of high school, mostly because of my size. So I went to the University of Arizona and walked onto their team there, and played a little bit there. College ended and I came home, and a buddy of mine asked me to come help him coach track. And I was like, what are you talking about? I don't know the first thing other than they do nothing but run in circles. So he said, don't worry about it. I need an adult in the room. So just come and I'll teach you. So I did a little bit with West Springfield's track and field program for a while, and we were really successful. And then the head coach I was working with moved over to Hayfield, and he said, I know you said you were done, but we're going back to your school. And I said, no, you're going back to my school. He said, no. I said, we. So naturally, he won that argument, and we went back to Hayfield. And then when we decided we had done what we were going to do there, Billy Tebow was coaching our boys soccer team at the time. And he said, you know, for 3 years, I've harassed you about leaving track. Track's gone away. So why don't you come coach with me now? So I jumped over and was an assistant coach under Billy for, I think it was 3 or 4 years. And then he got the Catholic job, and walked into our DSA's office at the time. And he said, this can go one of two ways. I can tell you that I'm leaving to go coach Catholic and you give the job to Drickey, or I can tell you I'm going to go coach at Catholic and I'm going to keep the head coaching position, but Drickey's going to do everything anyway. So between that and the involvement of several of our parents in the program wanting me to be the coach, and then I think there was even a phone call from Richard Broad in support of me getting the job. I was given the job in 06, and it's been my job since. And we've had some really bad seasons, specifically after South County opened. Our enrollment went way down, and South County was the newest and the brightest. So even the people that were moving into the area wanted to go to South County. But we've had some pretty successful and talented teams. And one of the things I think, if you ask coaches in this area, if you are going to play Hayfield, you are going to get an honest 100% effort. They may not be the most talented, the most technical players, but they're going to battle you no matter the score, no matter the situation, until the final whistle.
Yeah. So, Coach, I know you also coach Valor. So you coach club soccer as well. You also coach at Wilson High School in DC, now Jackson Reed. How do you compare coaching club to coaching high school? I talked to Coach Arzani from Herndon about this the other day, and he was surprised of the emotion behind coaching high school, something that he didn't expect. And it reminded him of the soccer in his native Argentina. But what do you think about the task of coaching high school as compared to coaching club?
So for me, high school, I enjoy both. But high school is a lot of fun, man. It's, you know, I tell my kids all the time, you know, if you have a game at 8 o'clock in Olney, Maryland, especially now at the high school age group, there's nobody coming to watch you play. And when you get home, you're probably getting home and you're walking in the door and mom or dad is saying, hey, go cut the grass, you know, run to the store, get this. Nobody's asking you about your game.
And not only that, only 10 or 11 are going to show up. You're lucky if you have 11, but you're probably going to have 10. And you hope someone comes late and you can start with 11. But, you know, and you don't have a goalie, so you have someone in the goal without gloves on, and he has like a penny on. And
absolutely,
that's club soccer for older kids, 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm sorry, Coach, I interrupted you.
You're absolutely right. And in some cases at noon as well. Trust me, I've got our second team at Valor, and I love those boys to death. But I guess technology skipped a little bit when it comes to team snap, because I get a lot of yeses and then there's a lot of no's when it's kickoff time.
Yeah.
but I do. I tell the boys, I said, you know what, even on a Thursday night, you're going to look up in the stands in a break and play, and you're going to see your English teacher or your math teacher or your CTE teacher, or you're going to see that girl that everybody said was interested in you, or you're younger siblings or guys that you watched play 4 years prior on the fence back to see their old coach. So it's just different. There's a different environment about it. There's a different atmosphere about it. And one of the things that I tell them is, even especially our higher level players, if you're playing at Arlington, most of you are one of 18. And if you number them 1 to 18, the drop off is minimal. But in some situations, like at ours at Hayfield, sometimes, if you're the one, you are the one, you're the guy. And it's not so much about, can you get the result, but can you drag some of those guys along with you? Can you lift their level? And how do you respond when what you expect at club to be a clean pass or a right decision, now you have to react to something that you didn't expect? So I feel like from a soccer perspective, you learn more playing travel, playing club. But from a life perspective, you learn way more about being a leader and what real life looks like, because not everybody's necessarily on the same level. And you have to figure out, how do I get them to pull their weight, or how do I make up for them if they're not pulling their weight?
Well, how about the difference between high school soccer in the fall, like in DC, or in spring and at Hayfield? Is there a difference? Do you prefer one to the other? I'm always saying they should decide one or the other nationwide. They should have a fall or spring. Therefore, the clubs soccer can plan around high school and they can encourage their players to do high school. It's hard to do if there's two different high school seasons. But what about you? What do you think about coaching high school?
I agree with that 100%. We need to make it nationwide. Either everybody commit to doing it in the fall and we work around football, or commit to doing it in the spring and we continue to coexist with lacrosse. What I really enjoyed about the fall with the girls at Wilson, now Jackson Reed, is that we could play way more games and there were way more teams to play. Right now in the spring, I can play Northern Virginia teams, and that's about it. We can go into Prince William, we can go into Loudoun, but that's still Northern Virginia. When I was with the girls in DC, we'd play 3 games in the week, and it would be like a Monday at Paul VI, a Wednesday at our place against School Without Walls, and then a Friday or a Saturday up in Annapolis against Annapolis High School. So it was nice to get a variety as a coach going into that program at Wilson at the time. It was nice for me because I could start to schedule some teams that would kind of change the culture, because they were used to being the best public school in DC. And when a private school showed up on their calendar, they were used to losing to them. And that's just how they went into games. So it was nice to be able to schedule some variety for them and teach them that, hey, you are good enough to beat these private schools, and still keep beating these public schools. So I like the ability and the variety to play more diverse competition. I like the weather better in the spring, even though we start real cold. I think we finish in a better place. It was always hard in DC because we started in August on the turf when it's crazy hot, and then by the time we're getting into the state playoffs, everybody's wearing winter jackets and it's harder to stay loose. So from that perspective, I like the spring better, but really it moves me neither way, fall or spring. But I would love for it to be national, across the board. Everybody's playing at the same time, and as you said, then that allows for some better players to be able to play high school, because I think we lose a lot of potential high school players because their club coaches or their clubs or the leagues they play for are saying you can't play in the spring, or for the Maryland and DC and private schools, you can't play in the fall. I know ECNL is the big draw right now, and they have started to recognize that and slowed their schedule down or front loaded their schedule in the fall for the Virginia schools. But I think if we could get to a model where we're all playing in one season or the other, that allows the kids that are at MLS Next clubs or high level ECNL clubs, or even, I mean, I've experienced some clubs that really could benefit from kids playing high school also, but they still talk those kids into not playing, even though there is no league commitment there. And as we said, I mean, there's nothing better in my mind than playing under the lights at night. Friends, family, teachers, elementary school teachers show up to see their former kids play. There's nothing better than that.
Yeah, no, exactly right. And I think I have noticed more MLS Next players playing this year. I saw Fernando, another SYC kid, had 2 hat tricks in a row, and they upset Osborne down in Prince William County. You see, Gage is playing. Gage Lions had a great year for McLean. I see more MLS Next players somehow showing up on their high school rosters, and maybe it's just the last part of the season, but at least they're getting a sense of what the high school experience is like. So Coach, coming up next is Langley in the state quarterfinals. You're going to host Langley, and my good friend Coach Bo Amato. What do you think about Langley? What do you know about them, and what are some of the keys to success?
I know Bo pretty well. He and I have coached against each other quite a bit. I know that Bo is going to have Langley ready. I hear that he was at our game against Lewis the other night. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to talk to him. But I know Bo will have those boys ready to go. From what I've seen from some of their games, from what I've seen, what I've heard from other coaches that have played them, they're going to be disciplined. They're going to press. They're going to try and put us under. And set pieces and long throw-ins are going to be a weapon for them, which ironically enough is everything that I expect of a Bo Amato coach team. I've got the utmost respect for him. At our place, we have the benches on opposite sides. And sometimes that's great because I don't want some of those other coaches around. But every time I play Bo at Langley, he and I spend 99% of the game standing right at midfield talking to each other and saying, hold on just a second, throw a couple of coaching points out, and then we go back to talking. We've talked about, the club scene. We've talked about career paths. We've talked about his go-karting. We've talked about life. We've talked about all of his frustrations with high school soccer. But the one thing I know about Bo Amato is he's going to have those Langley boys ready to go, and it is going to be a battle Tuesday night.
Yeah, it certainly is, Coach. But it's still got to be exciting for you to be in the state playoffs. You're 3 games away from a state championship after already winning the districts, the national district, right? And then the Occoquan region. So you already got hardware along the way. I know you're going to take it one game at a time. But Coach, this has been great. I got your name wrong off the gate. I know it's tricky now, but it's great. It's great to meet you. Hopefully, I can meet you in person. Very happy for you. There's nothing like a state title run. So I wish you the best of luck. My son Chandler and I will be on hand on Tuesday to watch the game. So it's going to be very exciting.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah. Again, Coach, thanks for taking this time, and we will see you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, Coach.